shopgear.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
You're listening to Better Live Than Dead.
I believe it's a big challenge for our building to keep things in perspective and to, if we're going to get addicted to anything, let's get addicted to the process.
And with that, we welcome you to episode number 40. It's the off-season version of Trust the Podcast, powered by Better Live Than Dead and the Gear Radio Network. This one entitled, There Is Always Someone Hating on Buffalo. You can hear this podcast on betterliveanddead.com, iTunes, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube. Wherever you get a podcast, you can get this podcast. I am Ryan Wolfe, at WolfeBLTD on Twitter, joined on the IndyCar Media Hotline by John Cimino, at the JC Money. John, how you doing today?
Oh, hello, Ryan. I am feeling very well. I am doing good. You know, Ryan, the hood has been good to me ever since I was a lowercase G, but now I'm a big G. The girls see I have the money. $100 bills, y'all. Yes, I just quoted Montel Jordan on Trust the Podcast.
What a way to start the podcast. Yeah, what a way to start the podcast.
I'm good, man. Feeling good. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm feeling good. I'm happy. I mean, the weather's a little crappy, but hey, you know, we're here today. We're talking Bills. We're talking the big news of the week, the biggest news of the offseason, and one of the bigger news stories we've seen in quite a while involving the Buffalo Bills. Apparently, John, in the wee hours of Thursday night into Friday morning, which I'll tell you how I found out about this story in a minute, but the Buffalo Bills were reportedly close to a deal for then disgruntled Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver Antonio Brown. But that deal fell through in the wee hours of the night on Friday morning. I woke up about 4 a.m. to a text message from a friend of mine, Chris Downey, BLTD contributor and good friend of the pod. He said to me, "Is this really happening right now?" And I thought it was just talking about the Sabres. Like, oh, you know, the Sabres are coming back against the Blackhawks. Maybe they'll beat them for the first time since 2007 in Chicago. Then I went on Twitter and I saw the graphic, the breaking news, Antonio Brown to the Bills. And I said, oh, wow, crazy. Now, Brown was ultimately dealt to the Oakland Raiders for a 3rd and 5th round pick earlier on Sunday, the 10th of March. Brown also received a new contract for 3 years and $50.125 million, worth about 54 if he gets all the incentives and whatnot. But the big thing, $30.125 million in guarantees. So first off, on a broader spectrum, on a BLTD podcast spectrum, Antonio Brown used the same leverage that his teammate Le'Veon Bell used. He said, I know what I'm worth. I know what I'm going to get paid. I know my time in the league is short. I know I can get this money somewhere. And also, he was not happy in Pittsburgh. We saw that. He was very upset with the power structure, with Ben Roethlisberger, whatever it may be. So he used his leverage to get out. And boy, was there ever leverage. I mean, to put it lightly, Antonio Brown was dealt for peanuts.
He absolutely was. And
a future Hall of Famer. There is
absolutely. I mean, you know, I heard comparisons to him at this point in his career and Terrell Owens when Owens was dealt from the Cowboys to the Bills. But the difference between Owens and Brown is Owens didn't lead the league in yards and all that stuff like Brown did last year. So Brown still has quite a bit of tread on the tires there as far as a wide receiver. And, you know, a wide receiver in the National Football League, largely different than that of a running back in the National Football League, where, you know, you saw Jerry Rice play till he was over 40, and probably could still play today. That dude is a freak. But I look at this whole scenario, and I see that Brown got what he wanted. He played the system, he played it well, and he won. One of the very rare cases in which somebody can do what he did and benefit from it. Now, the one thing I should point out with the 3rd and the 5th round pick, that's for this year's draft. So it's not like Pittsburgh is, you know, has to wait another year or two or whatever for, you know, the benefits of these picks. They can see those immediately with an extra 3rd and an extra 5th round. For the Oakland Raiders, having 3 first round picks anyways, plus adding Antonio Brown, that whole team dynamic just shifted. So they're going to be an interesting team to watch in the upcoming season.
Well, looking at it too, first off, Antonio Brown, Field Yates of ESPN at Field Yates on Twitter points out, because Brown is now no longer a Steeler, or at least the deal has been agreed to in principle. Obviously, things can change, likely not, but it's only been agreed to in principle. I believe it doesn't go through until the league year starts in a few days. But Brown will count more against the Steelers cap while not playing for them at $21.12 million than any other wide receiver will count for his own team in 2019. If that tells you how much Pittsburgh had to give up to move on from Antonio Brown. But here's the thing that you point out about the Steelers, John. Not the Steelers, the Raiders, I'm sorry. At this point, they've cleared the deck for the most part, and it's John Gruden's team. And if these moves pan out and they work, then he looks like a genius. But if they don't, this will probably set this franchise back quite a while. I mean, you look at the deals they've made so far. They trade Khalil Mack, likely a future Hall of Famer. He's on the path toward the Hall of Fame. Then you trade Amari Cooper for a first-round pick. You get a first-round pick for Mack, first-round pick for Cooper. You trade a 2019 third and fifth, a 2020 second, and a 2020 sixth. In return, you get Antonio Brown, clearly a future Hall of Fame wide receiver. Mm-hmm. Three first-round picks, 2 in 2019, 1 in 2020, a 2020 second round, and a 2020 fifth round. So, essentially, I mean, it's all about a lateral movement, if you will. But those first-round picks, the Raiders have to hit on those picks. There's no doubt about it.
They do. They have to. Absolutely, they have to.
If they do, it could be something where the rebuild is, by the time they're in Las Vegas next year, they could be a factor, or it could be a thing where if they whiff on those picks, they're still picking high next year, the year after, and then the trade for Antonio Brown. I mean, I get it, because you look at it and you're like, you trade away Khalil Mack, but then you essentially switch Amari Cooper for Antonio Brown, and you get a first round pick. Mm-hmm. Like that's not bad at all, but you kind of try to wonder, like, what is your game plan in Oakland?
I don't know, but apparently Madden doesn't like it at all, because I'm looking at, of course, the always reliable 12up.com. They're not very reliable at all, but they have a little article on here that says the Antonio Brown trade was so terrible for the Steelers that Madden NFL 19 declined the deal.
That's hilarious. But that's no surprise, though, because I mean, again, it's a deal you never thought. When Antonio Brown was first upset about Pittsburgh, you thought, oh, it'll blow over, and then it kind of blew up when he met with Art Rooney, I think Art Rooney the second or whatever, mm-hmm. And they said, we have an amicable relationship again, but we both agree that it's best for both of us to move on. And then Antonio Brown went and called Ben Roethlisberger Fat Brock Osweiler. Which, for the record, I named the last episode of my podcast with Brandon the renamed Listen In podcast, and that was the subject title, and I didn't care, because I thought it was hilarious, and I photoshopped Brock Osweiler's face on Ben Roethlisberger's body, and it got a lot of laughs. So, but yeah, Antonio Brown calling him fat Brock Osweiler was hysterical to me. I mean, we know Big Ben's going to the Hall of Fame, but then again, as the GM of the Steelers pointed out, it's Ben Roethlisberger's team and a roster of 52 other kids, which, mm-hmm. again, there's a weird dynamic going on there. It works for them, clearly. But at this point, you wonder if maybe this isn't the beginning of the end for the Steelers, because they're losing Le'Veon Bell. They lost Antonio Brown. Mm-hmm. Ben Roethlisberger's getting towards the end of the road. I mean, they've got like Juju Smith-Schuster, stuff like that. They've got a halfway decent defense, but this is going to be the big interesting thing. And I know that we're supposed to be talking Bills, but I love talking football as a whole in general. This season is going to be determine whether or not Juju Smith-Schuster, if I can talk correctly, is indeed a number one. Is he a number one? Is he that as good as ever? And I'm on Team Juju. I love the guy. But is he as good as he is, or was he as good as he is because he had Antonio Brown on the other side that was always doubled? That's going to be a very interesting thing. And then, John Connor, his injury, he had an injury towards the end of the season, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. But he had a hell of a season in place of Le'Veon Bell. Now teams are prepared for that. So Pittsburgh's going to be a very weird
dynamic. It almost sort of reminds me of Green Bay towards the end of Favre's era. You know, where there was a sharp decline in talent around Favre. Green Bay was clearly Favre's team, but the talent wasn't up to par. They were missing playoffs and everything. And then Favre's last year was when they, had a nice resurgence or whatever. And then they transitioned over to Aaron Rodgers, and the rest is history. But this almost has, as far as the Steelers go, a similar feel to the end of Favre there.
I think at the end of the day, before we move over to the Buffalo Bills, the end of the day, the Pittsburgh Steelers and Antonio Brown both made their bed, and now they have to lay in it.
Yep.
If Pittsburgh regresses, which I suspect they will in some facet, they have to answer to this. Why can't we have a disgruntled player? Why can't we figure it out, make him happy, and continue moving forward professionally? But then again, we saw bridges get burned and all that stuff, and same with Oakland. They've pushed their chips to the middle of the table. You don't go out and get Antonio Brown if you're planning on being 4-12 next year. So
push their chips to the middle of the table for a team that's going to be in Las Vegas. I see what you did there, Wolfensteiner.
A bang, 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 bang. But with that being said, we move over to our three big things here. And this week, because we have no look ahead, really, the three big things can be sponsored by 26 Shirts. Over at 26shirts.com, you can actually get it till the end of the day today. So if you hear the podcast today on the 10th, volume 6, shirt 9, which I ultimately have to say, nice. Reservoir Bison, available through today at midnight.
You are full of wins so far already. Past 5 minutes, you're already on the board twice for W's.
I pay attention in the slightest. I always make sure to get those little victories in. Available through March 10th, which, like I said, time of podcast is about 11 hours, 10 hours from now. It benefits the Parisi family, whose son James is fighting through a rare form of congenital muscular dystrophy, muscular dystrophy. If you don't get in time to order this shirt, again, any shirt you can order through 26shirts.com will benefit someone and help someone battle something. And at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. So we thank our friends over at 26 Shirts, Dell, and all the guys. We appreciate you. And hey,
I gotta say, man, I love 26 Shirts. I love what they do. Good vibes from them, good vibes to them. They're doing their part in making the world a better place. So, Dell, good on you and good on everybody over there at 26 Shirts.
And I don't want my wife to look in my closet to see all the 26 shirts that I have, because I just tell her, hey, I made another donation, and then a shirt rolls in, and you just pretend just put it in the closet. I'll wear it, and then she'll just pretend like it's an old one. Anyways,
there you go.
The three big things here. First off, somewhat shocking news for the Buffalo Bills from their perspective. As Sean McDermott has often preached, it's me, not we, with this franchise. They've shipped out players in the past who they don't believe are part of the solution, who maybe are too much of their own guy and not much of a team guy. Obviously, the talking heads in the game of football have loved to point the selfish finger at Antonio Brown, because a guy takes it. Again, I'm about 85% Antonio Brown and 15% the team. I think you have to do what you have to do when you can do it to get paid, because it's your livelihood. You're not going to play forever. But right. They call him selfish because he doesn't stand in line. But obviously, too, with Brandon Beane making the move and having the discussion, not only just to say, hey, what's it going to cost to get this deal done, but actually engaging in a conversation, it tells us that obviously he knows the offense needs to be upgraded and clearly is willing to put his money where his mouth is. So.
Well, yes, not only that, but it also should tell Bills fans that this is in fact a different Bills regime, because there is a point in time, a sizable point of time, where the Bills wouldn't even kick the dirt off the tires of a free agent unless they were on the tail end of their career, where maybe you can bring them in, sell a few jerseys. They're not as productive or anything like that. And that's that. They're actually running the Buffalo Bills like, get ready for this, America, a football team. So for them for them to be doing that and it to be considered shocking is rather weird to me because it should be the norm with a football team, regardless of location.
And I agree with that one. It's nice to see. It kind of gets the blood flowing a little when you see. I mean, I know throughout the entire process, it was kind of a love it or hate it type of thing for most Bills fans on Twitter. And again, I know that it fell through relatively quickly. By the time it got reported, the deal was already dead, which is probably why it ended up getting reported. But I'm not against surrounding a young quarterback like Josh Allen. I mean, in this prospect or in this process, we know that Antonio Brown wanted to be, I guess, around a talented, somewhat talented quarterback. So it essentially wouldn't be wasted or whatever it may be. So maybe Josh Allen wasn't the most attractive spot for him to play in. But the fact that they're going out there, and we hear the same thing with the right tackle from the Giants that they used to play for the I think it was I think it's Tyrell Williams, where he's apparently on the Bills' radar. And then you've got I think it's Matt Paradis or however you say his name. No, Tyrell Williams is the wide receiver. I apologize.
Yes.
Let me see here.
Well, I mean, they should be in the game of searching for different things. And I apologize. I thought I muted myself when I coughed, but they should be in looking. They have a decent, an incredible amount of cap space now. They have a lot of money to spend, so they should be spending it. And again, going back to the somewhat shocking portion of it, they're running it like a football team. It's a football team. They need to fill. They have gaps that they need to fill. They should be looking into every available avenue to build this team.
And the name I was looking for was Darrell Williams. So you got Darrell Williams from the Giants, played for the Panthers. The Bills are interested in him. One of the best right tackles out there. You've got the center from the Denver Broncos, Matt Paradis or Paradise. Or I don't know. I'm bad with names. Matt Paradis, but they're also interested in him as well. So you say you go out and get those two guys. You go out and get a middling receiver, someone who can, I don't know, whatever. We'll talk about that in a moment. But the Bills they've got their irons in the fire. The only thing is they have to actually go out and make those moves to get better. Because yes, the silly season is very silly, and it's a lot of, oh, well, wouldn't it be crazy if this guy was a Bill and then the Bills could do X, Y, Z? Yeah, that would be great. But it's better when you actually have them on your depth chart. So it's good to see offensively where Brandon Beane is starting to put his money where his mouth is. We'll see where it goes from here. But the second big thing, John, that I want to talk about with you that really has kind of, I guess for lack of a better explanation, chapped my ass for not the reason you may think, for a different reason. But reportedly, the reason the deal fell through was because Antonio Brown said, no, I'm not going to Buffalo. I won't report. To run down the list real quick, the Steelers and Bills reportedly began talking on Tuesday. Brandon Beane called the Steelers and said, you know, what can we do? How can we make this deal happen? Ian Rappaport of NFL Network reported early Friday morning the deal was, quote, close to being consummated. More likely that came from the Steelers side of things because obviously they want to get a deal done. Once the deal fell apart Friday morning, the details started to roll out. Apparently, Buffalo got as far as discussing the deal with Brown's agent, Drew Rosenhaus. Now, in this process, they wouldn't let Antonio Brown talk directly to the teams, but obviously with his agent talking to the teams on his behalf, we know that it was serious enough. And then per Sports Illustrated, Delbert Breer, following the trade falling through, he said the trade compensation was, quote, in the ballpark. So they knew kind of what they wanted to do, kind of where they wanted to go. One second, my cat's trying to walk on my keyboard here. They knew what they wanted to do. They knew where they wanted to go. But then apparently Antonio Brown was upset with the idea of going to Buffalo. There were some reports that the contract was also a holdup as well. Obviously, we see that Brown wanted to be paid the highest, and insiders were unsure Buffalo was ready to do that. But from the more we gather, it really does sound like the sticking point was Buffalo. And that's, John, where I kind of get a little lit up. And if you'll give me a second, going to take a swig of water for the working man here.
Well, you do that. You take your swig of water, and while you prepare for the whole Buffalo argument, I happen to feel that there's more to the social media rumor about Antonio Brown and Jordan Poyer, and especially Jordan Poyer's smoke show of a wife.
We
Rachel
knew
Bush.
that happened. Yeah, we knew that happened.
Right.
That probably would create a little bit of some locker room drama.
She's gorgeous. She's a smoke show, but I mean, if he said no, I'm going to guess it's probably more along the lines of that than it is the city of Buffalo. Because if the city of Buffalo is going to pay him or would have paid him, he'd have gone. He'd have taken the money and he would have gone, and he would have, been a major upgrade at a wide receiver and in Josh Allen's development. I'm thinking it more has to do with Jordan Poyer than anything, but I'll leave it to you. I know you mentioned
that's fair. No, that was definitely a big rumor back in the day, because we know Jordan Poyer apparently was hooking up with a girl from UB or St. John Fisher, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Wife caught wind and then found out the wife was cheating with Antonio Brown as revenge or whatever. We're not TMZ over here. One second.
No, but I am looking at her Instagram right now, and oh man.
We are not TMZ. We are only Trust the Podcast. Sorry, I had to toss my cat off the desk because she's getting dangerously close to ending the podcast here early. But
damn it, cat.
When it comes, Sammy does what she wants. When it comes to the issue of everybody getting mad about Antonio Brown not wanting to come to Buffalo, and then everyone on Twitter starts to pile on, I get really irritated because first off, I know, like Sage Rosenfels, for instance, pointed out on Twitter when he became a free agent, he made a list of potential of every city, pros, cons, why want to go, why we wouldn't want to go. He said on his list, Buffalo was 32 out of 32, whatever. He said because it's cold, and the team was not good enough to make it worth it.
Oh,
and that to me says a lot, because if the Bills were a good football team, and they were a well-run organization, and they had made the playoffs more than once in the last 2 decades, or more than twice in the last 2 decades, I should say, because 20 years, 99, we're about there. If the organization were not even the Patriots, if they were, I don't know, your average, I'm trying to think of a team that's been as
Cleveland?
Good. If you were the opposite, if you were Cleveland but good, so I guess the Patriots. If you were just a better run franchise, players would want to play for you. They would look past those things. They would say, "Yeah, I don't want to live in Buffalo because it's cold 9 months out of the year, and the weather's terrible." And as we've seen in the past, when Marshawn Lynch was here and he did the ESPN thing where he's like, "Oh man, there's only Dave and Buster's in Buffalo." Granted, Buffalo's come a long way. Open up your horizons, broaden your spectrum, whatever it may be. I know that the Bills play in Orchard Park. It's not as appealing. If they were playing in, say, downtown, maybe it'd be a little more appealing. But it's really hard for me to sit here and watch people say Buffalo sucks or the city's garbage, because again, at the end of the day, it's not the city as much as it is the franchise. The franchise has not been run great in the past. It may be run great now. We don't know, because it's really too early to call. But in the past, it was not run well. They have not had a lot of success. They don't have a proven quarterback. They have a poor offensive line. The defense is really good, top 5 in the league, but the offense is so bad it drags them down. It's kind of like Kansas City. Kansas City's offense is so good, but their defense is so bad that it really brings them back to even. When they have to win a game defensively, they can't. Whereas if the Bills can win a game defensively, they can. But if you need them to win a game offensively, you're better off just throwing crap at a wall and seeing if it sticks. So again, I the love and the support from all the Bills, the Buffalonians on Twitter, and the uprise of, when Antonio Brown said Buffalo's a bad place to be. It's the city is great. The people are great. The weather sucks. The franchise inconsistent. And I think that at the end of the day, it just doesn't make it worth it for a guy like Antonio Brown to say, "You know what? I'm coming to Buffalo."
Well,
and I get that.
Here's the thing. And all teams go through this. They go through the, players don't want to play for them because of blah, 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 and this and that and the other. I mean, look at the Seahawks. Nobody wanted to play for the Seahawks. I mean, and now everybody wants to play with them because why? Because they're winners. The Seahawks are just as cold as we are, during the winter, and the weather can be just as miserable there in Seattle. And the New England Patriots, long before the Brady era, dare say even into the early portions of the Bledsoe era, nobody wanted to go to New England and play. It was inept. They were losers. They made one Super Bowl in the 80s. They made one Super Bowl in the 90s. Okay, so that's 2 Super Bowls more than the Jets have made since 1969. But still, the Jets had more winning seasons in that time frame than, and certainly the Bills had more winning seasons in that time frame. In the 1990s, nobody was talking about how terrible Buffalo was because they were winning all the time. It's only when teams are down and out and sort of losing that, those discussions come up. Nobody wanted to play in Cleveland. Cleveland was where players went for their careers went to die. And then all it took was Baker Mayfield and the new swag. And now all of a sudden Cleveland's a destination. Now people want to play with Cleveland and play in Cleveland. They're on the uprise. Even when Cincinnati was doing well, people were like, I'm cool with going to the Bengals. Cincinnati sucks, but cool.
It's kind of like what you see with the Rams right now.
Exactly.
I mean, Eric Weddle wanted to go back home and be closer to San Diego with his family, but also the Rams are really good, and you can plug yourself into a team that's already really good. It makes it a lot easier. So I think,
but in going back to where you say, and I'm sorry to cut you off there.
You're okay.
The new regime sort of still somewhat being in its infancy, approaching the toddler stage. I get it. Today's Bills fans and today's football fans only seem to know Buffalo from the Music City Miracle on through now. And longtime fans like myself remember Buffalo in its heyday when it was really freaking good. And it was cool to be a Bills fan. And you know, in the Western New York area, like this area right here, I'm talking Buffalo and Rochester, when the Bills are doing good, this area, everybody wants to be here. I can safely say that everybody's nicer. They love their team. They're very passionate about their team. So do you have to live here 9 months out of the year? Yeah, you do. But in the same, it's not as bad as people make it out to be. Now, I troll Buffalo as much as the next guy because of my wrestling ties and being a Rochesterian-based pro wrestler in Buffalo and, you know, friendly rivalry, whatever. But the bottom line is Buffalo is not a terrible place. It really isn't. The team itself is on an upswing, and I do think that they have the right pieces in place finally in the offices, and it's going to take a bit, but now they have a quarterback that is a thoroughbred, that is a natural, that has talent in Josh Allen. And they know they need to build around him, and they need to not mess this up, because if they do mess it up, then it's back to the drawing board, and it's same old Bill stuff again. I think that people need to, outsiders looking in, need to understand that and need to see that these Bills are doing it right.
In due time, I mean, if Josh Allen takes a step this year, people will want to start coming to Buffalo, like you said, with Baker Mayfield. He's starting to make Cleveland a destination because of the promise he shows. And I think in this case, for instance, with Antonio Brown, and as I'm just reading a story here from Albert Breer that just was posted, it really is all about money. And I think as well that the glitz and glamour of Las Vegas also probably has a big thing to do with it, because, you know, when they move to Vegas, he'll probably be the star of that team. He'll be the guy that's on the billboards, that's getting interviewed, that's getting, you know, hustled up and down the strip, all that stuff. So I think that certainly doesn't hurt. But from what I'm seeing here, from what Albert Breer says, the Bills' involvement crystallized everything. It says it was close enough in the ballpark, one source said, where the Steelers granted the Bills permission to talk with Drew Rosenhaus. Buffalo wasn't Brown's preferred destination, but his desire to have his deal redone with new money and guarantees really put the brakes on the trade. That was the crux of it. The Bills were very much under the impression that if they could appease Brown monetarily, he'd come to Buffalo, and apparently that was not the case. With apparently the deal with the Raiders almost fell apart because they couldn't reach an agreement on financials. It says here 30.125 fully guaranteed. Like we mentioned, the guarantees on the contract he signed 2 years ago with the Steelers were gone, and an $11.2 million raise over the next 3 years. Let's see here. Raiders paid the financial tax on the contract to get Brown for third and a fifth. So that's why, because the Raiders paid more money to get him and make it easier for the Steelers. And then with that being said, it just says here, it's not hard to see on the scoreboard. Brown's the winner, unquestionably leveraging his otherworldly talents for financial gain. If you follow the money, it is not hard to see. Also, Benjamin Albright, a good follow on Twitter, at Albright, A-L-L-Bright NFL, says that if my favorite thing is people yammering about a $21 million cap hit, not realizing the Steelers rolled over $18 million in cap relief because they did get 14 and change, I believe it was, for the franchise tag not being actually used on Le'Veon Bell. So the Antonio Brown cap hit rolling over won't be so bad. But back to the Bills real quick before we wrap this podcast up, John. Where do the Bills go from here? Now, the free agency courting period begins Monday, March 11th, tomorrow, if you're listening on the 10th. Mm-hmm. Free agency officially begins 4 p.m. on Wednesday, March 13th.
If you're listening on March 11th, it begins today.
Congratulations. I like how you did that.
There we go.
The biggest wide receiver available, Tyrell Williams from the Los Angeles Chargers, likely a big ticket acquisition there. Golden Tate, John Brown, Adam Humphries among the other big names available. Buffalo may dip their toes in that pool a little. It may be too rich for their blood. We don't know. Also, the other thing that I didn't put on the show notes, but there's another thing to look at too. There are rumors of guys like Odell Beckham Jr. being available. If Buffalo was willing to go out and pay the price and potentially pay the ticket to get Antonio Brown in Buffalo, not only now, but long term, maybe they'd be willing to go out and try to get a guy who's young, cost controlled, if you will, under a contract long term, and then try to make that deal happen. We don't know. But
I think that would be a very good move on the Bills' part. Now, I say this as the Bills Mafia's favorite Jets fan, and the Jets being in the exact same boat as the Buffalo Bills are in the offense in many ways. So this list that you have here on the show notes, the Jets are also have this list too, and it's going to be very interesting to see these two AFC East teams sort of drive up the price for one another. I anticipate names like Tyrell Williams or Golden Tate being on one of those two teams. Because they will be heavily courted.
In a good spot. They're in a good spot, and they're definitely going to get paid for sure.
Absolutely.
The one name that I'm enamored with at this point, I would say, comes to us at the NFL draft on Thursday, April 25th, which again, we'll talk after free agency, before the draft. Either myself and John, maybe Dell, or myself, John and Dell, or maybe a draft expert, whatever. We don't know what's going to happen because honestly, I haven't thought about it yet. But with that being said, the NFL draft, Thursday, April 25th, the Buffalo Bills hold the 9th overall pick. John, could DK Metcalf and his freakishly athletic self be headed to Buffalo via the 9th overall draft pick?
Why wouldn't it? Why not? Why wouldn't he? If he is available, then absolutely you grab him. You know, that's the thing with the draft. And I'm not as hip to the draft and mock drafts and all that, because literally it seems like every day or every 2 days, 17,337 mock drafts come out. And everybody, you know, is either it's all just a smoke show at this point. But someone with his athletic ability, his ability to change games and be that prototype, I think he would fit very well in Buffalo if he's best available, which he should be. If he were left on the board there, why wouldn't you grab him? It would be dumb not to.
I'm looking right now because his draft profile is something that's kind of unbelievable here. He crushed at the combine for sure, but His the one thing that he did not do good at was the 3 cone drills. Essentially everything that included agility, where you have to make quick cuts, all that stuff was not good.
Right. But his 40 was 4.33, the fastest ever recorded at a combine by a player that's over 225 pounds.
He hit a 4.33 40. He had 27 reps on the bench press, 40 and a half vertical jump, 134-inch broad jump. But then you look at the cone drill, 7.38 seconds, 20-yard shuttle, 4.5 seconds. So again, those are things that he may be able to work on in due time, but he has rare size and rare athleticism. He's
a very raw talent. I mean, he's somebody that could be dangerous if in the right fit, the right system. I can tell you though, him dropping to 9, there would have to be a reason for it. I know based on what I'm reading, what I have read, the 49ers are apparently interested in him, and based on his numbers, DK's numbers in the combine, his draft stock could have risen. 49ers hold the number 2 overall pick. Absolutely. So it's not. And now that said, the Jets also have the number 3 overall pick, but have been open to trading it. I have not heard that from the Niners, so it could be possible. Maybe you work a deal to try to get up there if you're Buffalo, if you really like this guy. And try to get the number 3 pick. Of course, it's in the division, but still, a deal's a deal. And if it's a good one, you do it. But that would be if he were to drop down to the 9th, Buffalo absolutely, positively should take him. But if the Niners are already eyeing him at 2, might be a long shot.
Hold on a second. I'm fighting with my cat here. She climbed on top.
Your cat does not like this podcast for some reason.
Climbed on top of me while you were talking to me. Hold on one second. She climbed on top of me while you were talking to me. And then she started rubbing on the side of my head, and then she actually started chewing on the headphone in my ear, and then ripped it out while you were talking. So she just jumped up and wanted to cuddle with me, but then she wanted to stand on my shoulder and eat my face. So she's just getting frustrated because I'm not.
My cat's just laying over there like the gangster that he is, just looking like he doesn't care at all.
That's fair. And
my dog is laying right behind me, sleeping.
I think the lead up to draft season, free agent season, the free agent frenzy coming up will be big. It'll be very important for the Buffalo Bills to line themselves, point themselves in a direction. In some sort of direction. So we'll definitely get back to that, and we'll see what they do there. John, I appreciate you joining Trust the Podcast today.
Oh, always. I'm very happy to be here. Very happy to do this podcast. I enjoy this podcast, and definitely look forward to pre and post draft editions. And if I may make a cheap plug, very much like last year, the plan for the Listen In podcast with myself and Brandon is to indeed do another live draft podcast like we did last year. So there'll be plenty of me for y'all to hear if you like between this podcast and that one. But I'm absolutely looking forward to talking the Bills again with you guys, and of course interacting with the listeners like we did on YouTube. Of course, the YouTube channel has always been very big with this podcast, and Spotify. We're very Spotify friendly, so definitely download Spotify. That is the preferred app of the Gear Radio Network for our podcasts. Very easy to access and fun, and thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure, man. And hey, if you need someone to talk about the Buffalo Bills on your little draft podcast, let me know. Give me a shout. I will be more than happy to help you.
Oh, believe me, you'll be there.
Now, with that being said, John is at DJC Money on Twitter. I am at WolfeBLTD on Twitter. You can hear Trust the Podcast, as we said, betterlivethandead.com, iTunes, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get a podcast. Get this podcast. If not, let me know, and I'll let John know, and we'll get it up there for you. With that being said, I know we do this on Better Live Than Dead, but hey, John's here, so we're going to do it.
We do it.
This is Trust the Podcast.
It's not. No, you jacked it up. It's We Are Trust the Podcast, not This Is Trust the Podcast.
I'm the host. I can do what I want.
I'm the owner of the goddamn network, Ryan.
All right, let's do it again. All right. 3, 2, 1. Okay. Oh, hey. I'm not going to cut that out, so it's going to be fun.
Oh, wonderful.
We are Trust the Podcast.
You're not.
We'll catch you sometime very soon. John?
Yes.
I just got one more thing to say to you.
Go ahead.
Shut up, John. Bye, everybody.
Oh, damn it, Ryan, you gimmick-infringing bastard. The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.